see through you, see your true colors.
Like you, be strong to hold the powers of the sun.
I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Listen to Pavarotti.
Can I be your superhero?
Hello, welcome to The Revealing. I am your host, Pavarotti, and I'm here to discuss the Idaho 4 case. And in this episode, we're going to go over what we just learned from the state's exhibit list, what they were going to present at trial, which is a portion of some injuries to some of the victims, along with some of the other information that we already had about injuries to victims. And we'll start trying to piece some of this thing together. And it's funny to me that as soon as this information comes out, damage control just starts pouring out. You can see a lot of people are talking about the Idaho 4 case right now, trying to get eyes off of what is real in this case. And let me tell you, what's real in this case was real in this case. And also, when you're listening to everybody out there play these 1112 videos and zeroing in on time frames, it's amazing to me. Everybody zeroes in on time frames that's not the time frames they need to zero in on. If you listen close, turn the volume up to the time frames where the atrocity actually happened. Between 4:10 and 4:20 is when the atrocity took place. I mean, there's no doubt. You can listen to it and you'll see that things happened at 4:17, and you can hear when Murphy starts barking, that's when one of the assailants left the house. And one of the assailants went and got in that white car at 4:19. You hear him shut the door. That white car pulled right up next to the side of the house. And then a minute later, or about a minute and a half later, it flies out of there at 4:20. The white car was absolutely part of this thing. But if you think one assailant got out of that white car and went in there and committed this atrocity, well, then you are brain dead. Because one assailant couldn't do this, two assailants couldn't do this, three assailants most certainly could do this, and that's how many I believe actually went in and committed this atrocity. And there's going to be a lot of evidence to back up what I'm saying. And this atrocity happened fast. It happened real fast, certainly faster than one person could do. And we're going to take a look at the injuries on these victims, and it'll tell you right there that this was multiple perps committing an atrocity at the same time. This wasn't, let me go unalive one or two here, go down unalive one or two here. No, this was a blitz attack, and it was a blitz attack by people that have a propensity for violence, people that have experience with violence. These aren't college kids going in with knives doing this thing. These are people that have done it before, and they had no problem doing it that night. And let's just take a look at some of the examples of what I'm saying here. Now, before we get into the autopsy photographs, it's important to understand this. This is taken out of the state's trial brief, and it's related to the photographs, maps, and diagrams that they planned on showing at trial. And you'll see it says the state will introduce photographs of the initial crime scene and related searches of the crime scene, the victims' autopsies, the search of defendant's residence in Pullman, and it continues to go through. And that's what you see in all of the exhibits in the trial exhibit list. As you go through their trial brief, it really points out everything. But this is regarding photographs. And when it says the victims' autopsies, this does not mean it's all the photographs of the victims' autopsies. This is the ones that the state has chosen to present at trial. So who knows how many more injuries the victims really have? But we're going to start with Maddie, because up until this point, all we heard was Maddie Mogan's fatal injuries included a left lung laceration and a liver laceration. And Maddie only had sharp force injuries. So as far as we knew, she only had 2 injuries. But now we learn that along with those 2 injuries, it also encompasses all of these injuries and possibly many more. But as we go through them, we see Maddie has wounds to the face and neck. She has wounds to her right eye area, wounds to the left side of her face, partial shoulder and the neck. She has wounds above her left ear, wounds to the neck and chest, wounds to the left breast and chest, wounds near her sternum. And you can see it's held close to show the weapon imprint, which we'll talk about in another video. She had wounds to her breastplate, wounds to the left shoulder, to her elbow area. And once you start to get to the elbow area, you can picture her putting her hands up and her elbow being injured, and the top of her right hand, palm down. These are defensive wounds. The palm of her right hand as she's holding it up defensively. Wound to the top of the left hand, to the top of the left wrist. Wounds inside the left hand and forearm, palm up. She had many defensive wounds. Maddie may have started out asleep, but she woke up and she tried to fight off the attacker. Knowing that and all the wounds that Maddie has, nobody can now say that her and Kaye was in the same bed being attacked by one assailant as Maddie is fighting off over 17 attacks. So how is she sitting there fighting off over 17 attacks and Kaye is just laying there next to her waiting for her turn? I cannot believe they expected us to believe this stuff. Over 17 plus wounds, and that's just all that they've told us up to this point. It could be many more. Then we go to Ethan. We were told Ethan was just asleep in bed, and he suffered a fatal injury from a stab wound under his left clavicle, which severed his subclavian vein and subclavian artery. And also his jugular vein was severed. Ethan only had sharp force injuries. For all we knew at this point was he just had a sharp force injury to his neck. And then they let us in through the grapevine on he possibly had some injuries to his leg. Then we learned this. Ethan had chest and throat injuries. That's probably the one to his subclavian vein and artery. But he also had a scalp wound on the right side, a scalp wound on the left and center side, scalp wounds, or wounds near his left ear, wounds on the back of his left thigh, wounds on the back of his left thigh, wounds on the inside of his thigh. Now, that's the one that I've been looking for. That's the one right there that tells you that these people knew exactly what they were doing. They were very violent, and they had been through the prison school of how to attack somebody with a knife. That's who attacks the inner thigh. Chapin, view of wounds to the right leg. Wounds to the right leg, to the top hand and fingers. These are defensive wounds. Now, to his hand and fingers. Top of the left hand, inside the left wrist. Ethan may have started out asleep, but he woke up and he tried to fight off his attacker. Nobody's going to tell me that Ethan was fighting off his attacker while Zana's being attacked 50 times and he just laid there. Not possible. That's 2 people, just like the defense expert said, they were attacking Ethan and Zana at the same time. 9 plus wounds that we know of on Ethan. And then there's Zana. She had fatal injuries from 1 laceration in her right lung, 2 lacerations in her heart. 50 plus stab wounds, mostly defensive. She only had sharp force injuries. Well, it turns out that's a lie right there. Because when we see her injuries, we find out that she's got wounds to her right side, arm up, face, neck, face and front neck area, right side of her face and neck. Wounds to her scalp, face, neck, shoulder, upper back, viewed from the right side. Wounds to her right side, top of head. Wounds to the center, top of head. Wounds to the left side of her face and neck. Fractures to her skull. That wasn't from a knife, y'all. That's 2 weapons used on Zana and Ethan and 2 weapons used on Kaylee and Maddie. We've got multiple perpetrators here. Wounds to the right side from head and abdomen. Right leg viewed from the right, inside of her right calf. So she had wounds to her legs as well, to her back and upper arms, to her elbow area. Wounds to her forearm, those are defensive. To the top right of her hand, defensive. Blade area of the right hand, defensive. Thumb side of the right hand and wrist, defensive. Wounds to the tip of her right thumb, defensive. Wounds to the palm of the right hand. Wounds to the knee, torso and head, left arm. Wounds to the top left hand and wrist. Top left hand and fingers. Wounds to the palm and inside of the left wrist. They did not list 50 plus wounds here. So that's how we know there's many more of these wounds just on Zana. So we can imagine there's probably many more on the others as well. Then we have Kaylee. Now we knew that Kaylee had fatal injuries that included a left lung laceration, liver laceration, 2 subdural bleeds, a stab behind her clavicle, which cut her subclavian vein and artery. Kaylee had signs of sharp force injuries, asphyxial injuries, and blunt force injuries. She had 20 plus stab wounds. We know from Steve G and backed up by Detective Gilbertson, she actually had over 30 plus stab wounds. Then we learned this. Her upper torso and head. Injuries to her face, to the right side of her face, the upper face and forehead from above, left side of her face, partial and left shoulder area, upper left side of her scalp and forehead, upper right side of her scalp and forehead. These are all head injuries. Wound to the back of her scalp, to the back of scalp and head close up. So that means she's being wounded from the front and the back. How is that possible if she's laying in a bed with her back to the wall? Wounds and fractures to the skull. Fractures to the skull from inside cranium. Injuries to the teeth, lower lip area, inside of mouth, lower lid of right eye. Wounds to the neck, left shoulder, chest viewed from above. Wounds to the left shoulder and upper chest. To the back of the left upper arm. Now we're getting into defensive wounds. To the left elbow, right hand, top of left hand, palm of left hand. All 4 of them had defensive wounds. They're putting their arms up. They're putting their hands up. They're trying to fight people off. They're being attacked from the front and from behind. These people were attacked in a frenzy by multiple perpetrators in a very short period of time. When you think about Kaylee and 30 plus injuries, you've got 17 plus on Maddie, laying in a bed next to Kaylee with 30 plus. That's over 47 injuries just on Kaylee and Maddie. And then you've got 50 plus on Zana and 9 plus on Ethan. That's over 59 plus injuries just on Ethan and Zana. That's over 106 plus injuries on all 4. And you're going to tell me that Bryan Kohberger by himself, all 160 pounds of himself, went in there and did this inside of a few minutes? You have got to be kidding me, and people need to open their eyes. You have 2 people laying in bed side by side, supposedly attacked by one individual, 17 wounds on Maddie, fighting it off with defensive wounds, and then goes over and 30 wounds on Kaylee, fighting it off, defensive wounds. Oh, and by the way, with 2 different unaliving weapons. Then they go downstairs and attack Zana in the bedroom, y'all. Zana wasn't attacked out here. She's attacked in the bedroom, right where they found her, feet facing the door, head facing the wall with 50 plus wounds. And at the same time, somebody's attacking Ethan with 9 plus wounds. And you're telling me that Bryan Kohberger at 6 foot, 100 and $105, compared to Ethan, who is 6'4", over 200 pounds, you're telling me he could take Ethan by himself, much less take all 4 of them? Come on now. Now you may notice my tone's a little bit different in this video, and that's because I don't like having to go through the wounds on these victims. I don't like having to go through and point this stuff out. But I got no choice because people out there got their head up their butt. And if we don't do it, nobody's going to point it out. And this thing will just keep on going the way it's going. And then I see these dishonest people that do dishonest things, like try to create damage control. And as I watched it last night, I wanted to reach through my TV screen and just slap them both, because These people have covered this case since the very beginning, and they know. Don't let them fool you. They're not up there playing dumb. They know. They know what time that they say that the car pulled through there at 4:07. They know what time that car pulled out of there at 4:20. They know at the very least this thing couldn't have happened in less than 12 minutes. Or couldn't happen in more than 12 minutes. Yet they're going to get on TV and they're going to try to do damage control, and they're going to play one off of the other. Oh, I don't think it could happen. Could it happen that fast? 20 minutes? Oh, no. I mean, really, it was 4 to 4:25. It's 25 minutes. They both know when that car pulled in and car drove out that they're saying is Bryan Kohberger's. So they're being dishonest and they're lying and they're trying to do damage control, and I'm not going to have it. And I'm going to call them out right now.
And with that, I want to bring in my colleague, Brian Enton. Brian, you talked to Olivia, and I'm sure you guys went into depth about that TikTok post. I'm still slightly unclear about what experimental means and how she learned or heard that term.
Yeah, so it seems this is something, Ashley, that she was told when she had this meeting with the prosecutor, with Bill Thompson, and also with law enforcement. And she went by herself, by the way. It's something she wanted to do by herself. So, she lives in California. She flew to Idaho, and she went by herself to sit at a table with all of them and get her questions answered. A lot of them still don't have answers just because, we don't know the motive. There's a lot that the prosecutor just doesn't know. But she did get a full list of wounds. And I think the presumption initially was that that a lot of these wounds came because Kaye was fighting back against Bryan Kohberger. And it seems now that may not be the case. Some of the wounds, and it's sort of just like disgusting to talk about, but when she says experimental, some of these wounds may have been Bryan Kohberger just stabbing in places and just almost like experimenting in a way, and some even after Kaye was already dead.
So basically just sadism, just a sick person doing even sicker things after he had done the sickest thing. And that was just, but I'm curious about the amount of time that he had in the house. It's like, I think it's hard to know exactly when he opened the door. All we know are the accounts of when they heard things in the house and when he was driving out of the neighborhood. But it's, it's roughly about 20 minutes. Was there even enough time for him to, and I hate to use the word, but it would be his sadistic description, play with his victims and do those things after he killed them?
Yeah, it seems there would be. I mean, we, like you said, we don't know the exact time frame, but we know that he was in the house between roughly 4 a.m. and 4:25 a.m. Granted, we don't know how long it took for him to get in and out and that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, it seems there would be enough time for him to do that. And it's pretty disturbing to think about.
Now, they both know that this is the car that they say is Bryan Kohberger's, driving still in this neighborhood at 4:07. And don't let them fool you. They know exactly about this car right here at 4:07. They also know that that's the headlights of that car they say is Kohberger's right here on this house at 4:07 and 50 seconds. Listen close. They may not have known that was that car's door shut at 4:19, but they absolutely knew that that car pulled out of there flying at 4:20 and 47 seconds. Don't let them fool you. They're lying. Now, this may be the last best chance we have to open people's eyes about the truth in this case. But if we let monkeys like those two mainstream morons get up and play their little let me play off of you game. Oh, I didn't have enough time. You think you could do it in 20 minutes? Well, really, you had 25. If we let them get away with that, that's sending a signal to all the other mainstream morons and minions out there to follow their lead so that they can stifle the truth. And we can't let them do it this time. This is our last best chance, I believe. But we're going to continue to put the truth out there no matter what. Please like and subscribe to this channel. Post your comments, your thoughts, your criticisms. I got a bunch I'm going to bring you on this subject. And until next time, Paparazzi's out.